What is going on? No horsing around family. Zach Boyd back at it again. Another Wednesday edition of the live stream. Adam Reuter, a guy who we've had on here quite often this year for the live stream. Love having him on. Adam, welcome again, man. Celebrating this win from the, over the weekend against the Titans in a situation where we haven't had a lot of success against Tennessee in the past. But my, oh my, how things changed that day, huh?
Yeah, for sure. It was great to have a good home divisional win for once. It's been too long since we've been able to say that against the Titans. So it's a good start going against them like that this year.
Exactly. Hey, Nick, man, we appreciate you, brother. Light us up in the comments. I guess we have to start with this. Don't want to be super negative on the live stream, but we do have to start here. Anthony Richardson, another injury. He's going to be out for at least 4 weeks. It looks like 4 to 8 weeks potential. He's on short-term IR. Just your concern level, just your thoughts on just in general. You think this is fluky, or are you starting to say, man, this is starting to be really creeping into the part for your mind that this is concerning at this point?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say that it's fluky with it happening in 3 of the 4 games, but no reason to hit the panic button or anything. Guys catch bad breaks with injuries all the time. It happens. But we're definitely glad we have a good high-level backup in Minshew. So I have a lot of faith in him. He's, never been the guy that's going to take you to the promised land, or anything like that. But he can definitely hold you afloat for the season until he gets back.
Yeah, I mean, and man, that was a great offseason signing, but going out there and getting a veteran guy, especially when you have a running quarterback. Hey, Daniel, you're watching from the hospital. Hope everything's well, but we certainly appreciate you doing that. Speaking of Gardner Minshew, a little bit of a game manager, Adam, but when it comes down to it, you know what you're going to get from him. Usually pretty consistent. Usually a guy who's going to be pretty accurate in a football game, but also he's limited, right? Like there's only so much he can do. He can't stretch the field like an Anthony Richardson or some of these big arm quarterbacks. But that being said, confidence level, if I had to ask you right now, your confidence level, in the next 4 to 6 weeks in him, if I had to put a scale of 1 to 10, where would you put your confidence level with a Gardner Minshew?
I mean, honestly, I would put it at a 7 or an 8. I guess with Richardson being the baseline, it's probably not too far off, to be honest with you, just because they're obviously different points in their careers. Richardson has a lot more high ceiling, probably a little bit lower floor too on some things. So, especially over at least these next 4 games, I have a lot of confidence in him, especially the teams that we're going up against. Jags are obviously going to be a tough matchup this Sunday. I think after that, the next 3 we've seen are the Browns, Saints, and then the Panthers. So it's kind of a mixed bag there, but I have a lot of confidence in Gardner. Like you had mentioned before, very accurate with the football. So, I mean, that's a huge trait in having in a quarterback, and he's played a lot of football in the NFL. So I feel pretty good about him, about as good as I could for a backup quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, Jim Bob Cooter, Shane Steichen, both same sentiment. Say he's a high-level processor in the NFL, which you have to be when you're limited, with that arm and everything. Let's talk about Zach Moss, man. We got to give him his flowers. This guy came in and took every opportunity to take these snaps. Probably has earned a second contract in the NFL. I don't know if that's going to be with us. I thought maybe at some point we could sign him back on the cheap. But when you're leading, you're third in the NFL in rushing, and you've played 1 less game than the 2 guys that are ahead of you, you're probably going to get some consideration from outside teams as well. But just Zach Moss in general, how impressed have you been with the way he's kind of attacked this opportunity and really just broke that game open for us, on multiple occasions last Sunday against the Titans?
Yeah, very impressed. He's picked up, right back where he's left off. I'd mentioned that before. A lot of people had checked out at the end of the Colts season last year in the last couple games, but I did not forget in that Texans game, Week 18, how hard he was running the football.
Yeah.
And even though they managed to lose that game, he's picked up right where he's left off, and he's just a really hard-nosed runner, and been really, really impressed with him so far. So I kind of hope they could bring him back too on a Nyheim Hines type deal, as a RB2. But he might be pricing himself out of that with how good he's playing so far.
Yeah.
So, hopefully it works out to where, we can sign him. But I think at some point, some team's going to give him a pretty nice deal, probably north of the $6 million a year that we were paying Hines, which is completely understandable. And so far he's earned it from what he's put on tape.
Yeah. I mean, Jonathan Taylor doesn't play the first 4 weeks, and this guy's probably made millions of dollars, with what he's done here early on. And I can't just think, football always has these corny, cheesy lines, but it's so true. Next man up. And I think he is really the staunch advocate for that, for this football team this year. And this offensive line, man, we got to talk about it a little bit. I mean, the way that the offensive line has played, week 1, they were a little bit sloppy. You can kind of expect that week 1. Week 1's always been weird, Adam, all across the NFL. You don't always get, certain guys play, certain guys don't play in the offseason. So you're not always having an opportunity to really get that cohesiveness down in week 1. But I'll tell from week 2 on, this has been a really, really good offensive line. I mean, I think PFF has them ranked 4th in the NFL right now. And I mean, they are getting out there, and I think it's fair to say, for me, just in general, they look really, really good. But Quentin Nelson is playing like Quentin Nelson right now, and you had to have it, right? I mean, you had to have Quentin Nelson come out there and be who he is. And at the core of what we are and the core of what we've been when we've been most successful, it's been that bully ball mantra, run the damn football. And I think we've kind of got back to that, huh?
Yeah, for sure. I think in the running game, obviously week 1, Moss we didn't have him. So I'd be interesting to see in that hypothetical what they would have looked like week 1.
Yeah.
Because, I think a lot of people kind of jump to, the offensive line's kind of picking up right where they left off as far as not playing well last year. And I don't think that was the case. I think they were just kind of taking some time to gel and get together. And now they're running on all cylinders right now. With even Bernard Ryman being out at left tackle, they haven't missed a beat with Freeland coming up here, who's been a really nice surprise for him to be able to step in as a rookie at left tackle. And, as a 5th round pick or 4th round pick, whatever he was. And, it helps that he is playing next to Big Q. And, Ryan Kelly's probably playing some of the best football of his career. Pretty sure he's the number 1 ranked center in Pro Football Focus right now. So, that's obviously going to elevate the play of the guys around you, including Will Fries and, other guys on the offensive line. So really, really happy with what we've seen through them, both on pass protection and the run game so far. Very, very happy to see that they're hitting their stride again. They're back at it.
Absolutely. Hey, man, quick shout out as we get going here. We're just getting going 8 minutes in on the live stream. Tyrell, thanks for hopping in. Daniel, Eddie's in here. Love seeing it. Corey as well. Daniel asked what wide receiver will get more targets with Minshew. I'm not certain it'll be the wide receiver group as much as it'll be the tight end group. I mean, he really targeted Will Mallory in that Ravens game, and he seems to be the guy that loves to hit those, those check down type plays or just those stick moves, 8 yards, 7 yards, and let those guys dive and get those first downs, keep the chains moving. Eddie, man, we're doing great. We're happy to be here. Let's get another one up here. Moss and JT best 1-2 punch when Taylor gets going. You'd like to think so, man. I mean, he got paid a lot of money, and you're wanting to get a little bit of, return on that investment. And it looks like that Jonathan Taylor's going to ramp it up this week, according to Shane Steichen, anyway. And then Corey mentioned that Blake Freeland, filling in left tackle the last 2 games, hasn't done terrible. I thought he was much better in the second stint than he was in the first stint. And that's pretty normal, right? Like you're just getting thrust out there. You had a late week injury you weren't expecting. You didn't prep to start all week long, and then you go out there and get thrust with Ryman getting hurt. Speaking of Ryman, sounds like he's back to practice. He's just really one step away from clearing concussion protocol. Colts have been really patient with guys with concussions this year. It's Ryan Kelly missed multiple games. They've really not rushed these players back with the concussion, which you'd like to think that's a internal thing that they're really being conscientious of when it comes right down to it. But you mentioned Ryan Kelly, who's a guy who hasn't played particularly great in the last couple of years, dealt with a little bit of injuries, and then some off-field stuff was just terrible to have to deal with. But man, I mean, he's moving people this year, and that's really kind of the catalyst for really separating our offensive line from what it has been in the past. And we always said, Adam, we had to have Big Q, Ryan Kelly, and Braden Smith being their, the best version of themselves for this offensive line to really thrive. But, I think at this point, I think Pro Bowl level Ryan Kelly is back, huh?
Yeah. So far from what he's put on tape, like I said, it always helps whenever, Quentin Nelson's playing at the top of his game too, right next to him. But man, I was worried about Jeffrey Simmons, as any team should be going into the game plan, and we didn't have to worry about him too much. I saw I was sitting in the north end zone whenever Zach Moss hit that hole on that 56-yard touchdown, and you could probably drive a truck through it. It was a nice size hole, so he was really able to turn his guy right in the hole, and it wasn't Simmons, I don't think, but yeah, he's playing at a really, really high level, and that's the type of whenever you have the highest paid offensive line, that's kind of what you need to have is a high performance from those guys up front, and that's what we're getting so far.
Yeah, I mean, pretty cool performance to see us go out there and get that win and kind of in a dominant fashion, kind of flip the roles with us in Tennessee as we've been in the last few years. Flipping over to the defensive side, Zaire Franklin's still playing out of his mind right now. He had that big 4th down stop. I know on Twitter he called himself the King Slayer, after stopping him on that 4th and 1. But just overall, just your thoughts and your reaction to how our defense is kind of held tight. We're pretty young on the back end. There's no doubt about that. And we've had some limitations, been dealing with some injuries. Also, Dallas Flowers, obviously, on IR, done for the season. Jalen Jones, you're really starting 2 rookies out on the outside, which is going to be, ultimately something that's really, it's going to be a challenge all year long. There's going to be some hiccups, but hey, these guys seem to really, not get their head in, in the ground, for lack of a better terms. I mean, they get beat, they go back out there, they keep competing. But all in all, just this defense, this front 7 in particular, Adam, looking pretty damn good early on, huh?
For sure, yeah. And like you said, even missing some guys with injuries, like Kwity Paye. I was pretty worried about him not playing. Probably our best pure pass rush, best end, I guess. But Samson, Ibukum stepped up. Dio has really been stepping up, which we really, really was, we're wanting to have. He's really just now coming into his sophomore year, because he kind of, I guess, redshirted, for lack of a better term, his first year, and the little time that he did play coming off that Achilles injury. But yeah, there's DeForest Buckner's playing out of his mind. I know Zaire Franklin's going to get, most of the credit as he deserved. He was right there and just attacked Henry on that 4th and 1. But Buckner beat his man on that play, and he had Henry down low, and it really helped Franklin make sure that he wasn't falling forward or anything. Just wanted to give D-Buck credit on that as well. But yeah, Franklin just playing out of his mind. EJ Speed is, still getting a lot of playing time. Obviously got a lot more playing time last week because of Leonard being 100% out. But, especially since we've seen Leonard's snaps go down the last, throughout the first 4 weeks, he's been playing really well as well. So it's nice to see the linebacker group playing like that. And, yeah, man, been really impressed so far.
Yeah, I mean, that front 7's been very, very good, and probably our most consistent group, as we've gone early on. We have a huge division game. I mean, I would have never thought at the beginning of the season that we would be going into Jacksonville with a chance to be in first place 6 games into the season. I would have thought, this is going to be a pretty rough, rocky road as we go through the season. I think anybody, if we're being honest, and all Colts fans took a little bit of truth serum, I think we're a little bit further ahead than we probably all thought we would be at this point. That being said, that back end, let's take away the cornerbacks and let's talk about the safeties, because I think that's probably been, if there it has been a disappointment for me, I've probably been disappointed in the safeties, because you're not really dealing with rookies back there. And there's just been a lot of miscommunication and some inconsistency. And I believe, in my opinion, Adam, you got to have those guys playing solid to help those young guys out, right? Like, you got to help. You can't miss your assignments. You can't be one step late. And I know Blackman had the interception, but they just seem to be out of place a little bit. And that passing game has really hurt. Teams have seemed to pass on us pretty easily as the season goes on. Gus Bradley's always the type of defense he plays. He's going to allow yards. There's no doubt about it. But just the communication, just your thoughts. I know you mentioned you were at the game. Just your thoughts on that safety group, because they're not rookies, right? Like, it's now a veteran group.
Yeah, I think I'd made the comment at some point that it was always frustrating how good we made, Ryan Tannehill look. Sometimes we made him look like more of a competent quarterback than he probably is. And, luckily at the very end, he made that ill-advised throw that was able to close out the game. But, man, yeah, I haven't been impressed by any means, but by Thomas and Blackman. I don't think they've been, the worst in the league or anything like that. I haven't seen just absolutely awful. I've probably seen worse. But, yeah, there's a little bit left to be desired there from what you'd expect. And part of the missing X factor is, if this is what we're seeing right now, is like, is Nick Cross look worse than that in practice to where they're not willing to put him in, So that's kind of my question, I guess. Hopefully at some point he'll get some opportunities if we don't see much better play. But right now I think they might be taking it as, they want, week by week type situation. We won last week. Let's not change anything up. But, at some point, if it gets much worse, you're going to have to make a change of some type.
Yeah. I mean, I think Rodney Thomas, too, he had such a good season last year. He's been a little bit out of place this year. I think I expected more from him in his second season. It just hasn't been anything to flash. Not that he's played absolutely terrible, like you mentioned, but then you mentioned Nick Cross, a guy who they traded up for, and he can't get on the field, man. Like, I mean, I don't know what that's all about. He was very young when they drafted him. I do know that. It was all about learning the playbook, learning this design, learning this defense. Maybe we'll never know, but yeah, he can't get on the field for some reason. And he can't get on the field when you got two safeties who haven't played particularly well. So that's something to monitor as the season goes on. You mentioned Dio as well. I thought Dio was very disruptive in this football game. And Dio's had a couple opportunities to come in there and fill in more of a starter role. And in those situations, he seems to gain confidence. And he's the one guy. He can be kind of a game wrecker, in my opinion. I think he really adds a different element. He's big, he's fast, he's strong, he's physical. But it'll be nice to get Kwity Paye back this week, hopefully, dealing with that groin. Just our pass rushing group collectively. What are your thoughts on just the group in general? I know we don't have anybody who's been particular. We don't have a TJ Watt. We don't have a household pass rushing name. But that being said, as a group, pretty good though, right?
For sure. Yeah. I think there's a lot of good players there. That's been one of my biggest things over the past few years is not having that pass rush. So it's really great to see this kind of come together. Like I mentioned, Dio, Samson Ebukam before, and then Kwity Paye. And then you can't forget, I think that DeForest Buckner might already be the best three technique that's ever played for the Colts. I'm willing to say that. And no disrespect if I'm forgetting anyone for whatever reason in the past, but he's already put enough where, to be able to get a consistent pass rush from the interior O-line like that taken on, a lot of the times double teams and whatnot and still having a presence is just very, very impressive. I know on Sunday they were definitely a problem. They didn't get home as much as, you would have liked to have seen them get home. There was one really frustrating play where Buckner was draped on Tannehill, either on a third or fourth down, and he somehow got the ball out. And I was like, man, that's the most frustrating. But the point is they were getting there. You just got to finish it sometimes. So I've said, and I believe this for a long time, is if you don't have a pass rush, it really doesn't matter. A lot of other things don't matter because you're probably not going to stop you're not going to stop the opposing offense, and you're going to have to rely on your offense to go, score touchdown after touchdown, try to keep up with them. And that's definitely not something the Colts have had for quite some time to be able to put up with. So it's nice to be able to have that pass rush. And that's going to help you win games 100%.
Yeah. I mean, it's really, we had to have it. I think there's been a little bit of an upgrade this year. Certainly don't have the lights out, household sack leader in the NFL, but collectively done really well. Josh Downs, though, man, I don't want to miss him. I mean, that guy has been secretly very good and been good with both quarterbacks. It's not really, I don't think this is a system fit where it's just him and Anthony Richardson, two young guys connecting. Been good with Gardner as well. Just how impressed have you been with Josh Downs? I think he is the ultimate chain mover, but then he provides you a little bit more than that sometimes, right? He can get you a little bit of a chunk play as well. I think everybody coming into this season thought that Alec Pierce was going to be a more like him, but it seems like Josh Downs is the clear number 2 in my mind. The trust is there, the talent's there, the ability's there. Just your thoughts on Josh Downs early on as a rookie, 5 games on. He's been pretty good, huh, Adam?
Yeah, very impressed. The word that comes to mind is separation. And, no pun intended, I would say he's probably separated himself from Alec Pierce on the number 2 wide receiver on the depth chart right now. Even though they might not show it like that. Yeah, man, he's just really is a complete receiver. And, I've talked about it before, but, that was really the only ding on him in his scouting report was just he doesn't have elite size, but pretty much everything about his game is there, so he's got great hands, great separation, great route running. And, he's really shown that so far in the year. So he's looking like a steal right now in the 3rd round. But as far as targets go, with Minshew coming in, I think that we have seen that connection already. It seemed like that deep ball to Downs, at least from my angle, I was like, that was a beautiful play. It did seem like that ball was up there forever. And I saw Kevin Byard coming over and I was getting a little scared, but he got it in there to him just in time. And that was just great to be able to see having big plays like that from a receiver. We've been missing that for a long time, that type of wide receiver. So it's great to see that. And, he's developing into a real player for sure. And I think he might be able to play on the outside eventually, sooner or later.
Yeah, man. I mean, he's pretty talented. Just switching over to, our quote unquote number 3 wide receiver, Alec Pierce. Man, I've been disappointed, if I'm being honest with you, Adam, when it comes down to him. I thought more was going to come from him in his 2nd season. I thought we were going to see that real jump. I thought we were going to see somebody who was explosive, 50-50 balls. I do know that he and Richardson's game works better together, but I feel like a little bit, for me, there's been a little bit of trust lost by just the quarterbacks in general. They have thrown to him here in the last couple of weeks, giving him a couple targets here and there, but they're not really throwing the football to him, except for maybe 1 or 2 deep shots a game. He did have that big 3rd down catch, which was huge. But that being said, do you just think that Pierce has just kind of lost his confidence when it comes to, catching the football? I know he had that big drop in the preseason. It feels like ever since that happened, it all just went, just downhill.
Yeah, I think that might be a little bit it. But, I think I'm not hitting the panic button on him or anything like that. He's kind of has been very underwhelming, obviously. But I think that he kind of possesses that, skill set as far as his size goes, where, he's going to be able to outbody some smaller corners. We haven't been able to see that very much this year at all. And you'd mentioned that 3rd down play, which was huge. That was what we needed to see. If he was a little bit smaller receiver, maybe he doesn't make that catch, where he's not able to box out the cornerback as well. But yeah, the confidence is always a big thing with the receivers. It's pretty easy to lose that, after you have a big drop or whatever. But I think once he gets going a little bit more and the season goes on, I was glad to see that, basically from that third down. I think that did, kind of give him a little bit to keep going and pushing forward and everything and not have all negatives. But I guess I could also see, whenever I think of him in the deep ball, and obviously that Richardson comes to mind, and Minshew's not going to have that as much, but I think we probably might end up seeing more passes like that, where those little 8-yard hitch routes, those, comebacks on the sidelines, and they're going to need to be extremely accurate. And I think that Minshew can do that. So I would like to, I think we might see more targets from him. And hopefully Minshew's willing to put a ball out there too that's going to let Pierce go up there and get it. But again, it's all about confidence and him being able to go up and get it first and foremost.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see as the season goes on. It's a long season. There's no doubt about it. We're only 5 weeks in. We got plenty of football left. But you'd like to see him get on the same page with the quarterback group and get things going, because this is a guy that I know the Colts were high on. We as fans were very, very high on. Before we get into the Jacksonville game, last guy who I think just played particularly well in a small role, but it's getting bigger every single week, Drew Ogletree. I mean, this is a big guy, man. When he catches the football and he's downhill, you can just tell those cornerbacks and safeties are getting low. They're just trying to go for his legs because he can absolutely truck you. And he's got some real speed to get open, at that position. And I think one thing that we were lacking and we were all concerned about, Mo Alie-Cox, one of the main purposes for him being on this football team was his inline blocking, his ability to block. Well, Drew Ogletree's kind of taken that role on as well. He's been able to be pretty sturdy in the run game and the blocking game as well. And then on the field, when he catches the football, always seems to find a way to get a first down.
Yeah, for sure. I like Drew Ogletree from what I was, hearing, coming out of going into training camp. And then really from when he got drafted, it was kind of hard to find anything on him playing at, Findlay and then Youngstown State. It was hard to really find anything except Senior Bowl footage. And, it made sense. That's probably where Ballard first saw him too, if he's being honest, was the Senior Bowl. But it's just crazy the small amount of he didn't really, for production wise, didn't really do much at all. He didn't catch a single touchdown at Youngstown State. So, credit where credit's due on Ballard finding a guy like that. He's been a nice player so far. And he's probably taken some snaps away from guys like, Granson and whatnot. And like you'd said, Mo's got that inline blocking down pat. So it's nice to be able to put an athlete like that in the slot, because I do think he has the edge over Granson on that. But yeah, I'm glad. I really like our tight end group. But we got Will Mallory also as an option as well. So whenever I saw Mo Alie-Cox had that injury, that concussion, I hope he gets back as soon as he can, obviously. But you feel a little bit better having those guys behind him, those three tight ends. So,
yeah, I mean, and we haven't even seen what Jelani Woods could do in this Shane Steichen offense yet. Still dealing with all of that. And then we've got someone piping in here. Ogletree needs more snaps. I don't disagree with that at all, man. I don't disagree with that whatsoever. Transitioning over, get ready to talk about the Jacksonville game. But before we do that, guys, thank you so much for hopping on here. Like, rate, review, share, and subscribe. Join this No Horsing Around family. We're so grateful for every one of your interactions. We see it. We read it. We try to comment on every single one of those things, and we're just grateful for you guys to be a part of this and follow along all season long as we do these live streams every single Wednesday at 9:30. That being said, Jacksonville Jaguars, this is going to be a road test, really unlike that we've had all season long. But I'll start here, and I'm going to tee this up for you, Adam, and I'm curious just your thoughts. So this might be a little long-winded, but the Jaguars have not faced the Indianapolis Colts this year with a Shane Steichen ran offense with Jonathan Taylor and Zach Moss in the backfield. So they went against Deion Jackson, who had a historically, I mean, you and I could have done what he did in that football game. I mean, it was terrible. And then, they played Richardson for the most part. They didn't really have to go against Gardner Minshew, so it's a different quarterback. So there's some different elements to this football game, some things that Jacksonville hasn't seen from us, but we have seen that from them. We have a little bit of game footage. We have a little bit of game film to see what they want to do. That being said, Jags had a really impressive win out there in London against the Bills, and they're hot and cold, but Trevor Lawrence has been pretty solid. I expect it to be a really, really hard-fought football game. Just your initial thoughts on the Jags and Colts preview in the game.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about it. Especially looking at week one and not having those, options, or having those options at running back, and then us still really being in that game for, 90% of it. I have a good
halfway
feeling
through the fourth quarter.
Yeah, yep, exactly. So, I feel really good about it. Even with Gardner Minshew, I think they got a real shot at it. Hopefully they can get Jonathan Taylor going, and then once they hit a few runs like they did, that should really help with the play action pass, and that can open up things more downfield as well. But yeah, the Jags have kind of been a little bit up and down. Obviously they got. I think if I remember correctly, they got whooped by the Texans. I don't think that was a close game. I think that was week 3. But then the Texans are also kind of a little bit better than most people expected them. But yeah, that's divisional game. You can't put that in a microscope. It's NFL's a week-to-week thing, and they're a good football team. Trevor Lawrence is a good quarterback, so you always got to be ready for that. So, but yeah, overall, I think it's going to be a competitive game, and I think they should hang right in with them the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason why we can't go down there and we can't have a chance to win a football game, late in the fourth quarter. I just don't. I think we have the right recipe. We're going to have an opportunity to run the football against them. It's going to be a 1-2 punch. They haven't seen these guys in the backfield. Should get a healthy Ryman back. So, although you hate to see him miss the games, this is 2 weeks he hasn't had to play football. So his body's had a chance to rest up, just from the natural attrition of playing in football. I mean, so, you hate to see the concussion, but that being said, maybe he's going to come out there fresh, ready to go. And then you've got Gardner Minshew, who's going to be highly, highly accurate, in this football game. I guess my only concern is, if I'm going to play devil's advocate, is Gardner going to be able to push the football down the field and make enough chunk plays? Because they're going to know we're going to try to run this football, and they're going to load that box. Is he going to be able to find those receivers and get those receivers behind those cornerbacks? I think that's my real concern. Other than that, I think Gardner keeps us in the game. I don't expect a lot of turnovers either way in this football game. And I think that, ultimately it's going to be a one-possession game. Maybe it's a situation whoever gets the football last has a chance to win this football game. And I got to be honest, I like our chances. I really do. What do you guys in the chat think? You guys think, and give us a little bit of a prediction out there. Let us know your thoughts. Score of the football game. Do we pull off what would be kind of an upset? I guess it would be an upset. That's what I'm going to call it. I mean, we're a road dog in this football game, and not necessarily expected to win this football game. But Adam, I guess I'm curious your thoughts. We talked about it and alluded earlier. I don't think anybody really thought that going into week 6 that we would be playing for first place in the AFC South, especially with the thought and the premise that we thought we'd have a rookie quarterback, heading into this game.
No, for sure. I know I wasn't expecting that at all. I think looking at, the schedule going in, just initially, facing the Jags, then the Ravens, the Rams, and the Titans. I honestly probably, especially after, early on, I easily could have thought that we would have only won one of those games, maybe against the Texans or 2, early on. So that, so you can say whatever you want that I'm less of a Colts fan because of that. I was just, trying to be realistic. We're defying expectations, and I love it, and I'm all about it. But yeah, it's great to be able to go into this game and say, hey, this is our goal, is to win the division. We got it right in front of us, a huge step in taking the lead right here. And let's split that game. They got us on the first one, but we got them right here, and got them right where we want them.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a real. I think it's going to be a competitive game. I think it might be a little bit of a more lower scoring game that people realize could be a game similar to the Ravens game. Where it's a little bit ugly, but at the end we just found a way to win that football game. Obviously, kicking all of those 50-yard field goals was unbelievable. Derek mentions earlier. He's just not completely confident because we just can never win in Jacksonville, and you ain't wrong, brother. I mean, it's been hard. It's been tough sledding, but I don't know, man. I mean, I feel good about our front seven. I feel good about the pass rush. Trevor Lawrence will turn the football over. That's one thing you got going for him. He's a little bit loose with the football. He's a little bit loose with the interceptions at times. I just want to talk before we get off here. Etienne, I know he's had a great year, and he had one big run against us. But I feel like we can stop Etienne. I mean, I just don't. For some reason, for me, I'll say this, and I'm curious your thoughts. Etienne doesn't scare me like some of the other premier backs in the NFL. He just doesn't scare me. It's not that he can't beat you. It's not that he can't do, he put up big numbers, but he just doesn't really scare me as far as our front seven going up against him.
Yeah, for sure. I think if they can play as well as they did last week against Derrick Henry, get that penetration up front and let the linebackers go in and finish up the job, then I think we're going to be fine. I think the thing that ETN probably has a little bit more than Derrick Henry has is that receiving threat, sending him out over the middle. But like we had talked about before, EJ Speed has done a really good job with staying with those guys. So I have a lot of confidence in him and Zaire Franklin of being able to shut that down and cover it. And then with Franklin in the run game as well, he's just all over the field, So you're right. I'm not really as scared by him as much either. He did break off that big run at the end of week 1. But if we can avoid big plays like that, then I think they're going to be in good shape.
Yep. I think you're right too, guys. As we always do every Wednesday night, we're going to do a little bit of our prediction as we always have. I'll go first. Adam, give you a second to think about it. I think this is going to be an extremely competitive, extremely close football game. And I'm going to go, it's going to be a little homerism here for sure, but I'm going to go 23-20, Indianapolis Colts beating them. I think we can drive the football, going to kick a few field goals, score a couple touchdowns. I think our defense maybe starts off a little bit slow, but they always settle in really, really nicely. I don't think the ETN's going to just come out there and run all over us. The main thing that scares me more than anything is those wide receivers because they are very talented. They got 4 guys that can catch the football: Ingram, Ridley, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk. That's the real concern. If you can find a way to turn him over and flip that field a couple times, and then just JT, Zach Moss, a few chunk plays here and there, I think they escape, and I think they win the game by a field goal, man. Where you at?
Yep, that's about where I was at too. I got 28-24. Like we talked about before, if we can limit the big plays, get the offense going with either Zach Moss or Jonathan Taylor. We got options now running back. So, either way, I got especially for us not winning in Jacksonville since 2014, I have a weird amount of confidence, call it the X factor, call it the Gardner Minshew swag. I don't know what it is, but I have a good feeling about this week, and hopefully we can get it turned around and get our first dub in Jacksonville in quite some time.
That's right, man. JDW says Minshew Mania is coming to Jacksonville this Sunday. I hope you're right, man. I hope you're right. Corey's going to say, let's see, 2017 Matt Gay with that walk-off field goal. Man, that would be pretty damn cool if you ask me. Yeah. I mean, I think it would be very, very cool. Guys, before we get off here, as we always do, we just want to thank you one more time, man. It's just really cool having these interactions, getting to know you guys, getting to see all the new people, plus the regulars that are always on here. Just had a really, really good time with you guys tonight. I know we go a little bit short, but just want to get in here and have a conversation and preview it. Hannah, don't want to forget you. I think the Jags pull it off 27-20. Hey, I mean, you're giving your honest opinion, and that's what we're all about here. Also wanted to thank Adam for joining us again, man. He always does a great job on here, just giving his perspective. Been knowing this guy for a long time, and we've been talking Colts football for a while. So, Adam, again, man, thanks for hopping on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. And as always, guys, we end it the same single way. I love you. Adam loves you. The Colts love you. And we're out.